you.
Thanks, Victoria. So right now we're going to be talking about some advertising stuff that we've been doing with Optix and Zini. So anyone out there, Optix, do we know what it is? Any idea? Yes. Have you heard of it? No. Anyone? No. Well, Optix is NVIDIA's proprietary ray tracing engine, and it's actually free. It's the cool part about it. And Zini is our rendering engine, and I'm going to talk about how we do automotive advertising in an innovative way, something that's very different from a conventional method. So today I'm going to be talking about a little bit about my company. I'm going to be talking about the Optix engine, how we're implemented right now, how it's working right now for us, and also things in the works right now, things to come, what we're developing for things in the future. So let me start out with my company. It's called WorksZebra. We've been around back in the late 80s, big hair, that type of era. We were doing, I don't know if you guys remember, there was something called the Laserdisc. And we linked the Laserdisc up to a kiosk, and we're all about selling cars. At that point, we were not really with CGI. So what we did on the Laserdiscs is that we synced it up with a barcode, and you would scan it, and you would get either an image or a motion sequence about a certain element of a car. It could be the engine, it could be ABS, it could be the color of a car. It doesn't sound too innovative right now, but back in the day, there was no internet, there weren't any iPads, there was no nothing. We're talking 1989. So anyway, the barcode is WorksZebra. That's the name of WorksZebra. So anyway, that was then. Right now, we have something called Zini. Now, this is the name of our rendering engine and also the name of our products. Now, Zini, the name comes from, this guy, the Aladdin genie guy, But we couldn't get the copyrights, of course. We couldn't get the URL. So we sort of linked it up with the Z from the zebra, and it became this sort of magical lamp that we were trying to create, using 3D technology and cars, and try to think about how we can use that to sell cars. Now, the philosophy we had behind Zini was always it had to be quick. We could not wait for it. It had to be clean. It had to look nice. It had to sell cars. And at the same time, it had to be easy. A lot of you folks are graphics professionals, but the people I deal with, the client and all the agency, they're not Mac savvy, they're not Maya savvy, they're not 3D professionals, but yet they want to be able to manipulate or see these 3D assets. So how do you do the quick, the clean, and the easy? These are always our challenges. So I'll talk about that today. So anyway, the first app I want to talk about, this is our internal tool. It's called Zini Photo, and again, quick, clean, and easy. That's what I want to talk about. So focusing in on the quick and the clean, this is our interface. I'll take it for a quick spin here. You can notice that the speed here, it's clean enough, but this is the interactivity we have with the speed. It looks full frame, full quality, and we could manipulate the frame as much as I want. And this is very important, not just from a tech demo here, because I'm not really here to sell the software. This is how we create our artwork for the art directors, for the creative directors to be able to manipulate this car in this speed. So let me show you something else significant about the easy side of it. Now, back I'd say about I think it was last year, Apple was running some ads, and the key tagline I think was, "There's an app for that. There's an app for this. There's an app for that." But for us, we've gotten a button for that. There's a button for this. There's a button for that. We've done this a lot of times. So what I'm going to do is change the color of the car, make a quick running shot of our car really quickly here. So anyway, I'm going to go through the color tab. We're going to click on some factory colors. And all this is pre-rigged, so you don't have to go in, select the materials, change, swap, whatever. You can go and sit down with the client and do this really quickly. Now, if we're going to change, do the running shot, we have the rigs for the steering. If you want to lower it, we can lower it. If you want to tilt it a little bit, we can tilt it. And, of course, motion blur, you click on a button, and everything's pre-rigged, pre-fabbed, and we click it, and we have a very quick running shot, as I'm just talking on and on. So anyway, next I want to show you a comped image, a composited image, this car on a background, and how quickly and easy it is to do that. So let me do that. Let me select the background here. load it up, and let me reset all the parameters. Now, I'm intentionally doing this to show you how easy it is to quickly sort of manipulate this car into place. Now, as we're doing this, a typical flaw or the difficulty with compositing images, one on the other, is always focal length, the lens. Now, the back plate here, the background image is about, what are we at, 70 millimeter. But the car is at 40. So the car's wider than the front. But typically in the 3D apps, you got degrees, you got this, that, whatever. We take the digital sort of information from the background image, which is 70, and we can just click it, and from that point, it'll like mathematically make it correct. So again, there's a button for that. Now we're mathematically in there. And now what we're going to do is change the environment so it's wrapped on there. So let me sort of key that into frame there really quickly. And it's a very narrow road, by the way. The car's not big. It's just a very narrow road. We wrap on the environment map, and boom. And, of course, it's 3D, so we can twirl it around and sort of key and eyeball it in there to make a quick shot. So, again, this is not a feature demo. I don't sell the software. This is how we create the artwork with our clients. So anyway, as I'm talking on, you're going to be able to, my art directors sit down with the client and say, all right, we'll have the text box here, we'll have the corporate logo here, so they can visualize this ad as they're sitting down with their client. And in some ways say, all right, we've done the front before, let's twirl it around, let's pick a different color, and it's an interactive ad creation process. Now, the speed, again, is key here. There's a lot of products out there. Again, I'm not here to compete with them. I'm just saying I could not do that with those products, so we made this feature, we made this service, and our clients really kind of like it. So the end product with that, what we do is this is an image that we created from that. It looks nice, right? It looks great. I hope, because I get paid for this. I'm not here to, again, sell it. Something closer to home. Vancouver, right? You got Canadians out here? Some Canadians? No? No nods? There aren't any Canadians here? There you go. Fellow Canadians. So this is some stuff that we've done out for Toronto. You know, print ads. This is how we do it. This is how we create the art. This is real-time rendering, actually. And I'm going to talk about a little bit extension of that, how we've extended that on a different way. But, you know, this is something closer to home. And next, I'm going to talk about Optix. Now, again, Optix, for those of you just joining us, do we know what it is? Ring any bells? No? Yes? Maybe? Optix is the rendering ray tracing engine from NVidia, supplied actually free. It's free. You don't have to buy it. It's an API that they give you free that optimizes on the Fermi architecture. Now, we've taken that and actually replaced there's little bits and pieces inside our rendering engine that implement ray tracing, and we sort of swapped it out, and I'll show you some performance examples there. But our roadmap there using Optix, let me show you how we've implemented it. We first saw Optix at a show called GTC. It's a GPGPU technology conference sponsored by NVIDIA. I don't work for these guys. I just saw them randomly at San Jose in 2009, probably around October or November, I think. I saw it. I saw the Design Garage demo, and I said, this is what we need. Because I was rendering frames at maybe 60 minutes, 90 minutes a frame, and it was interactive, but it was CPU. There was no GPGPU solution at that point. Siggraph 2010 last year in Los Angeles. I had a demo running within 12 months, and I showcased it. And afterwards, I was working with my clients, and I got a gig in about December 2010. It was for Toronto. It was a client for Toronto, and I was not able to show it. But today I'm going to show you how we do that, the specs of how good Optix is for us, and at the same time, I'm going to show you a case study, the final product. And I also have some few printed samples, so if anyone wants to see them, we can also do that at the same time. So again, sorry, these are the exact slides I showed at GTC last year. But let's say this is the final frame of my artwork. Actually, most of this is done real time in DirectX, DX9 nonetheless. And on top of that, for the areas that really require some pizzazz or jazz, we ray trace. Now, to be specific, what it is that to your left is our real-time screen. And to the right, specifically the headlamps and the fog lamps, we have a ray tracing solution, software that we used. But it was slow. It was very expensive and slow, time-wise. So we sort of ventured into optics. Within that 12 months, we went from real-time, ray trace, and then to the right, we have optics. And actually, the optics the client liked the most because, of course, we tweaked it up with the blue haze of the headlamps and so forth. And it looks pretty darn good, and it actually helps Toyota sell cars right now in Canada. So time-wise, what we're looking at, right now I said minutes before. Specifically, the time that we measured last year was 60 minutes a frame. And that we got down to about 15 seconds, which is 240x per frame. And this is just one pass. And I'm sure I have artists here, but it's not just the one pass that makes that frame. You got to do it over and over and over. So you do a couple of passes, that's like 10 hours worth of work right there. And I could do that in 240 times the effort. So anyway, what does it look like? End product looks like something like this. It looks pretty darn good. And that is, again, the surrounding sheet metal is DirectX. And on top of that, we share the geometry, and we mask out the ray traced areas, and we composite inside our software to come up with a frame. Another example. So this is what I showed last year at GTC. I wanted to show the final artwork, but I couldn't because, of course, we were in production and the car was not released. So my client would be very angry with me. So anyway, let me talk about the Corolla FSI, the insert. So again, if there are any Canadians here, maybe you might have seen him up here, but let me show you. The task or the team that we had for this project was pretty diverse. The client, the agency, the creative director, we're all in Toronto. I had a CG director in Los Angeles, and I had my team in Tokyo. So it was crazy. We didn't have the car, all sorts of challenges. I have zero time. But, in the midst of it, we kind of got it all to work because the creative director was actually using our software, and he was able to go to previs really quickly. I'm talking create images like this days after we gave it to him. And the challenge that we typically have in ad world, I don't know how many of you for the advertising, I don't know if you guys are film-based or whatnot, but in advertising it's like, all right, you go around the car, you do a shoot-around, and all your comps are based on those angles if you're doing photography. If you're doing CGI, you come up with like Marshmallow Man, and it doesn't look anything like the car, so you end up getting sketches and so forth. So anyway, we're able to go to previs these comps really quickly. I'm talking days after. And also, this is what my creative director was able to produce, something like this in days with the car. It doesn't look like much, but if you compare it with what they're usually getting, it's always restrictive. But my creative director loved it because he was in charge, and he didn't have to ask some 3D guy or whatnot to do this way or rotate it or whatever. Now, the other point is the speed to output. Now, with optics, I said 240x, right? We were able to create these images that look like this really quickly. The final product within 24 hours. And I also got a quote from my creative director over at Dentsu in Toronto. And he's basically telling me, look, Chacha, with Zini, and he didn't understand optics. I tried to explain it to him. The creative directors, they don't understand GPUs, nonetheless GPUs. So anyway, his point is that Zini and optics allowed him basically to visualize and to express his thoughts. Because that's really the battle with, really working with creative directors is trying to understand what they want, how they want the angle, how they want the light or whatnot. So our process says we give them the tool, our tool, and they sort of wire it in, and afterwards we perfect it. So thanks Les on this, so he really enjoyed it in the process. So we were able to go from this to this in a matter of really days. And the final output to this was really days. So let me show you what optics looks like to the final. So let me click on this one right here. And this is a closer zoom in of it. And let me go even tighter on the headlamps. So this is optics. This is the first time I think this has been shown. I don't know if any of you recognize that ad, but that was a physical ad I have over there. So if anyone's interested, I could show it to you. That was, it ran in, I think, the entire country of Canada for the good part of, I think, the beginning of this year. So you're looking at right here, again, sheet metal all around. It's the same frame that I showed you before with the Prius, but this is a final finished product. This is what Toyota ran as a newspaper ad. So good for us, and good for us. Another image here on the back side of it. Again, most of the car here is real time. except the tail lamps. So all the reflections and the refractions of the tail lamps are done in Optix. Again, Optix, those of you just joining, is the real-time ray tracing engine on the GPU of the Fermis here at NVIDIA. So just summarizing here, for Optix, what we did is we were able to go from GTC, seeing the API, we've been to an alpha beta phase within 12 months. And within 18, I made that ad. I got paid. I got paid to make that ad and do it really quickly. So I think, I'm claiming today that I've made the first Optix car ad, I think, ever in the world. And I'm also questioning is that we might be the first company to do a GPU car ad. I'm just questioning, I'm not claiming it, but unless someone has done it before November 2010, that has circulated within this country, in Canada. So I don't know, maybe I've made the first GPU ad. So that's sort of where we were at right now. That's what we do as a business. So after that, we've done a couple more cars, and that's how we render headlamps, tail lamps, and so forth. But moving ahead for the GPU, what's next for us for Optix? This has always been a challenge for us. It's the car interiors. Now, those of you in advertising, or if you guys do anything for cars, a bulk of it is on the outside. You look at a car ad, it's mostly on the outside. I'd say 80% of the ads are on the outside, so we're all right. But if we want to complete our package, right now we do photography, or we do it the old school way. We take a lot of time to render the interior. It's just not good. Our quick, clean, and easy, that philosophy does not apply for our interiors. So how do we do it? We have a long list of technologies that we have to overcome, but two of them are global illumination, of course, and ambient occlusion. Ambient occlusion we have right now, but the goal we have is to really do this dynamically or interactively, for that matter. Now, let me show you some more examples. This is another final frame that we've done for another country. But, again, the interiors, how do we do this? This takes my guys days, weeks. It's very expensive. I make no money on this. I don't. A lot of people compete in this area. It's tough. Something like this. The guys do a great job. But how to do this quicker has always been the battle. So again, out of my long list of things I have to do, dynamic, ambient occlusion, and also some kind of dynamic global illumination. The ability to change things inside that scene so the creative director or whatnot can frame his basic image and give it to us so we can give him a final image. So what I'm going to show you next is a couple of examples that where we're at in terms of Optix for the interior. Now, I'm going to do some computational numbers here. Afterwards, I'm going to get George here, my lead dev guy, to show you the specific side-by-side comparisons between a ray tracer. I'm not trying to compete, again, but for us, just showing you the speed of what we can do with Optix. So again, global illumination, I'm sure you guys all know it, but those of you who don't know, it's so you got the green and the red. How the color bleeds onto the spheres, that's kind of global illumination. Is that entirely correct? Probably not, but that's my version of it. All right, so ambient occlusion on the bottom here of the spheres. You see that little blurred out shadow? That's ambient occlusion. The hard lit shadows, that's from a light source, so that's not really ambient occlusion. But these elements are required and missing inside our pipeline to complete our ray tracing. Our image pipeline here. So for specific numbers here, our Zini engine, we were able to compute ambient occlusion for this scene in 3 seconds. We tested two other ray tracing engines. One took 200. One took 46. So we're doing pretty good. GI and AO combined, we're still at 3 seconds. We're still at 3 seconds. Again, there's not that much geometry here, so it's pretty quick. So again, we compare it with rendering engine A for ray tracing and B. It's still pretty quick. So anyway, I got a little chart here, and I got my little X time thing. So anywhere from 15x to 100x times quicker in this primitive example. So we're pretty impressed with this. So what I'm going to show you next is that if we can switch to the workstation, what I'm going to show you next is a side-by-side comparison between, on the upper left, on the upper right is going to be a window. This is pre-recorded of the same exact scene in a ray tracer. And on the back, this is one of our tools. It's called Zini Model Creator. We have an alpha version right here that's going to compute the global illumination and also the ambient occlusion. So George, why don't we give the ray tracing a head start here. There it goes. And why don't we click on the calculation button and see how long it takes. Now, I claim 3 seconds. Let's see how long it takes. All right, it took 5 seconds. But you get the idea, and they're still computing at the same time. But as you can see here, the global illumination from the blue pillar to the rest of the room, and the ambient occlusion on the bottom of the sphere and so forth, and they're still computing. And this, I think, took 40-something seconds or whatnot. So anyway, this is a quick demonstration live of optics and how global illumination and ambient occlusion are done. So if we can go back to the Mac slides, please. So the primitives. So that was the primitives. Now, so what, right? So we can do boxes, balls, whatever. But we sell cars. We help sell cars. So I got to show you something a little bit more car-oriented. So what we have now is a wheel. And I talked about global illumination and ambient occlusion on the outside. I talked about it on the inside. I'll show you that next. But right now I want to show you quality for a wheel and how global illumination actually affects all this. So for computational numbers here, this took 42 seconds to achieve the ambient occlusion. And respectively on the different ray tracers, 500 for one and 72 on another. So we don't have that crazy 100x here, but we still got a good lead. And still on the AO and the GI, 43 versus 500 and 102. So we still got that lead. So going to the chart again and all the times X numbers, we're still, we don't have that 100x, but we're still at a point where we can control this dynamically and provide results in addition to what we have right now. So again, let me show you the different layers here. So this is the generated ambient occlusion layer. We have this already, but what we do right now is pre-calculated. Well, this is a different engine that we sort of included within or utilizing optics where we can create this dynamically. So, for example, if something moves on here, we can recreate that dynamically, the ambient occlusion. The best example I can give on a car is that let's say we add a real spoiler or something. Then, technically speaking, the ambient occlusion should change. If it's pre-calculated, we cannot. So that's the type of thing that we have here. So on top of this is the GI layer, which is this. So if you remember right, it's very faint, but we had red spokes and we had a white wheel. So how the red affects the white wheel, the rim of it, this is the GI layer. And again, this is calculated dynamically as well. So you combine the two, and you get this image here where you have the ambient occlusion around here, and at the same time, we have the red bleed from the spokes. Now, the final image is a glossy, real-time image here of a wheel that incorporates all this. We have the ambient occlusion and also the areas of global illumination, such as this, from the red from the spokes. Now, I was talking about interiors, so let me show you the interior next. But on the outside, we weren't able to do this before. But then again, we're not selling wheels, so we're trying to sell the car. Was it required? Not really. The clients don't really they're not really into the detail of these technologies, but once we show it to them, they're talking about it. So anyway, let me show you next where we are at with the interiors. So the interior, let me show you the numbers. This takes a lot of time, I got to be honest. A little under 2,000 seconds, which is roughly, 40, 50 minutes? Ray tracing takes even more. Global illumination, same deal. We're about 2,000, 40-minute area. And ray tracing, still up there. I'm not going to make you wait 40 minutes, of course. So let me jump to that. But let me show you a comparison here where we're at. We're about 1.8x times fast. So you're like, so what? So what, right? Go with the ray tracing option. I'll show you something really significant at the end that will change your mind. But anyway, let us go to the real-time workstation, please. So this is the ambient occlusion layer of our interior that was computed after 40 minutes. Now next, George, if we can see the GI.
By itself?
Yeah. There's not much here. There's not much bleeding going on here. I think we might have some colors from the armrest or something bleeding into the instrument panel, but that's about it. I think we have some red here that's bleeding onto here, but that's about it. So can we combine those two, please? So when we combine ambient occlusion and global illumination, this is sort of what we get. Again, this is very alpha. We just literally just made this technology. But we combine that with the diffuse, we combine that with our shaders, and
flat first.
Let's show where we are at before. This is before we add the ambient occlusion and before we add the global illumination. It looks like this. I show this to my client, I will lose my reputation, my job, and everything. But we add those layers that I just added on here, and that will sort of show you where we're at right now. It looks a lot better. It's nowhere near that picture I showed you before, but this is a lot better. Now, why don't we zoom in towards an armrest or something and show a dynamic change of, I don't know if you guys are noticing, but this is significant here, the fact that we're moving inside of here. So let's take that red armrest and why don't we change it to a different color to show you a selective area global illumination update here. So we changed the diffuse material. So the red is still there because we have not recomputed. It's dynamic, but it's still, you got to press the button.
Ready?
Yeah. So you press, we're computing right now. So this is probably roughly going to take, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds. We'll get a timer thing, unless, of course. We're good?
Good, there it is.
So right now, the updated area, I don't know if you can see it, you had that little green glow. Of course, we're not car designers. We would never put that there. But again, this is a technology that I'm going to show you how we can do these updates. Now, before that was red. Now we have the green there. Again, but we did it selectively. I didn't make you wait 40 minutes. But we can also update. So if we are doing an interior of a certain grade, if we want to update it, so let's say we're going from the fabric to the leather or something, and we're doing, I don't know, the white leather image first, and then you want to go to the black, you would change it, update it, calculate it, and then we're going. So, I don't know, George, if you want to maybe give them a quick tour and maybe highlight some ambient occlusion areas or something inside this.
All right. Well, basically we're at a phase 1 here. We've got visual errors that you can see that we're going to work on. It's just an algorithmic problem. And the beauty of this is that you only calculate it one time for the whole scene, and the rest is baked in. So you have the option of adjusting how you want it applied. So you can do something like this in real time. We have a very good algorithm for the details. For example, those very small crevices are handled well. And you can see other problems here. For example, on the floor, when you have large triangles, you can see there's a lack of resolution. We require high-resolution models for this to look good. And it's good because that's what we have from our CAD models. So what we're doing here is slowly approaching photorealism without traditional methods.
Thanks. Well, I think we're out of time, so I can show, if anyone's interested in that print ad, I could show you the quality later. But if we can just go back to my slides really quickly, I think I got like 2 more. Sorry I cut you off there, George, but you know. Time's a waste. And anyway, so, but I don't know if you guys noticed, I said 1.8x. I'm going to get kicked off here in a little second, but I was rendering that at about 30 frames a second. So I didn't have to dynamically update that. That's baked in there. We did the calculations, and I was moving in at 30 frames a second. So if I do motion, that 1.8x factor exponentially increases. So I don't know if you guys caught that, but that's 1 frame, but that's multiple frames, and I don't have to do that anymore. And we were going in there at 30 frames a second anyway. So anyway, hopefully, you know, I can see you guys at Siggraph next year in Los Angeles. Hopefully I can show you the interior, a finished product of that. And thank you for your time. Thanks.